Alright, so first step here is I've got to determine which design I'm going to be using. So I'm going to measure the annular space here on either side, and now I've got 29 mil and 14 mil. The annular space is the space between the edge of the pipe and the edge of the opening here. If it's below half an inch, if the measurement's below half an inch around the whole thing, I can just slap a collar on here and be done with it. If it's a little bit bigger, I might be able to take some wrap strips using an engineered judgment and put them up inside. Unfortunately, there's a rubber coupling inside here to attach to the steel drain coming up from the floor above. So I'm going to end up having to install a steel plate around this, and so I guess that'll be next there. Well, the metal plate allows us to close the annular space if we can install it tightly to this cement here, and closes that off so that we can install a collar over top and maintain the fire rating here. There's my cut on that piece. Eyeball this one here. Right, so now I'm going to be using this nibbler here. The nibbler works by cutting through this tap and die. It'll move up and down very rapidly. It's fairly safe. It's really hard to get anything in. This is 18 gauge galvanized steel. The nibbler will go up to, I believe, 16 gauge stainless steel. So for the nibbler, this is butter. Alright, so I've cut this so that this part will fit around the 4-inch pipe and close off the gap. Now I had to cut these out in order for the for these plates to fit over where the hangers are to hold the pipe level. Alright, so before getting started installing, I just got to make sure these fit. That one looks good. This one's got a little bit of a problem on the left here. Got an old, some kind of drywall hanger rod or something. So I'll just mark that out as well. I just gotta cut out one more rod. so that fits up there pretty beautifully. Now I gotta find some way to hold it up there while I'm hammer drilling. I prefer to be able to work alone, so I got this 4-foot clamp here, which I can use to leverage the plate in place and hold it there. So it's important to find something strong enough for it to anchor onto here. So right now I got it essentially tied into the cement using this steel rod and clamp here. So plate's solid. So this is a Makita rotary hammer drill, cordless. Cordless is important, makes everything a lot more efficient moving around here. We don't have to do a lot of holes, but saves us a lot of time not having that cord. Now it's important to have a rotary hammer drill over a regular, just a regular kind of hammer drill or whatever from a normal drill where they added in a hammering component. This one's designed for the job exactly, and it'll last a lot longer. It's a 1/4-inch bit here, not too long. Only got to go about 1.5 inches to get my 1.25-inch bit in there nice and snug. This will go through steel no problem. It'll make it a little bit tough to get the anchor in place, but it's still better than pre-drilling holes through the steel. Alright, so you want to go about 1 inch from each edge on the corner here. In forward. So it's just a sleeved anchor here. So that part there is going to get sucked up here as I tighten it down and expand into the side of the cement there. So, I use that additional fender washer there in order to give it the rating that Hilti requires. Now, you don't need a very big wrench for this, but this one's nice because it gets into tight corners. There we go, it's tight. Alright, so at this point I've got 2 anchors in here. I could take this out without the plate moving around too much. So I'm going to have 1 anchor each corner, so I'm going to have 1 here, 1 back here, and because of this weakness here, I'm going to end up putting another one right there. Now this last one's a little bit awkward. Gotta drill at a little bit of an angle, but just gotta start slowly and let it cut into the steel before you start pushing real hard, or it'll slide off. So you want this pulled back about to there before you kind of flush with the bolt before you start hammering, because when you want it to tighten down, you don't want it to shorten the length of the anchor. Nice and awkward there. It's awkward to hammer drill, it's even more awkward to hammer it in. Alright, so that plate's on tight there, not moving anywhere, and fairly tight on here as well. So you want to have it within a 1/4 inch about there. Alright, next up I'm going to put the next plate on and clamp it down again. I'm going to size my clamp first. There we go. Go back to the side for now. Same family there. So again, about 1 inch and 1 inch from the edge. You only want to do one at a time to start. It's going to move it around. With only the clamp holding it up, and you're going to have some issues with your holes not lining up. Right, now we can take our clamp down. As you can see, this side doesn't have the same issue of having two cuts in the same area that this side does. I'm just going to put one right there and one right there. Should be good. Now we're going to be cleaning out this area here. So this design here is CAJ 2053. Calls for half an inch of sealant here, and you can see by the rubber gasket here, I've got only about half an inch to get it in there. So this is just to make sure that there's a smoke seal for the first few minutes there before the collar expands and crushes this XFR pipe here. That is, of course, in the event of a fire, which we all hope doesn't happen. Scrape off the concrete a little bit with this steel pipe cleaner here. Make sure to get all the debris off. The cleaner you can make this, the easier it is to seal it, especially when we get to a big gap like this one here. So right now, it's just a Hilti dispenser here. I've got FS1 Max sealant in here, just a small little foil. FS1 Max is an intumescent sealant. I'm going to do about 2 inches at a time, going back. I can get it to stick just a little bit onto this cement here. Now the cement's a little more difficult, generally harder to clean. Once I've got that, I can shoot straight up and maintain my half an inch without anything falling out there. Right. Next I gotta play some Tetris with this caulking gun here. Not so much smooth it out, but make sure it's pushed into the half an inch depth specified in the design. So, now I'm gonna put the plates back on here. Now, and you're doing this part, it'll be a little bit tricky to get all of the bolts back in their respective holes. There we go. Here we've got a CP643N or a Hilti Firestopping Collar, 4 inches, so that means that it's about 4.5 inches here. which relates to the outside diameter of the XFR pipe there. Now, this is for use with combustible pipes, or pipe that will burn in the event of a fire. Now it's got 2 latches there, so you can pull it open and close it around the pipe and then latch it closed. It's got 3 of these tabs. Now a 4-inch, you have to use 3 of these tabs. You can preferably use them on 3 opposite ends for probably the best anchorage, but Hilti will allow you to use 3 side by side if that's the only place you can access in order to anchor those. Pull that around, tighten her on. So you remember for earlier, the gap on this side was a lot larger than the gap on this side. So I could just do 3 on this side. It's still going to be a little bit awkward when I get into this rod here. So let's see what I'm going to do. Now, it was a pretty big gap, and I'm considering trying to take a, how do you say, self-tapping screw and bring it through the plates. If there's no actual cement behind here, I may be able to anchor it in, but I'm a little bit dubious as to whether I can manage that. So, bring that one right there. This one there. And that one we're actually going to do right there. Right. Alright, so I'm hoping that this won't crack the cement and prevent me from anchoring here, but if it does, I can always move it over to another location, anchor it there, and seal up whatever hole I made there with FS1. Now, so before I anchor this, I should remember to add a little extra FS1 right there. The areas I won't be able to access once it's anchored down. And same thing on this side. So that feels like a pretty solid hole there. See when I tighten it down. If the cement is cracked, this will never tighten properly. So yeah, that one's nice and tight, good to go. Caught a little bit on that copper pipe there. Alright, that one's tightening down nicely as well, so we managed to get it all anchored properly. That's good. Next off, we've just got to seal around the perimeter of this plate. So I'm going to do a quick wipe down here. Adjust my spray nozzle a little bit. There we go, just a little bit of a mist. Plate can stay somewhat wet, no big deal. Keeps the FS1 from sticking to the plate too much. So this part, if you want it to look really nice, you've got to make sure the tip of your gun is nice and clean, and that the cut is about this close to the edge. You don't want it here, it'll be a little bit too wide of a bead of FS1 here.